I need a motion to approve the agenda. I need to ask for a motion to modify the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to modify the agenda to bring item 5C to the place of 5A, which would then move 5A to 5B and 5B to 5C.
Okay. Okay, I have a first and a second to modify the agenda to bring C to A. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. The motion is modified. I have I need a motion to approve the modified agenda.
I make a motion to approve the modified agenda.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a first and second to approve the modified agenda. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the agenda is modified. Next up on the agenda is public comment on agenda items, and it's a limit of 2 minutes per person. And if you have similar comments, please group your people together, if at all possible. No, there's not that many. There's not that many. Okay, the first one up is Maureen Patterson. Yes.
It's kind of low.
You want me to keep the time, Keith?
Thank you.
Sure. 2 minutes?
Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the blessings you give us every day. Thank you for this beautiful day that we had today, the weather. Please spread your wings of wisdom and light to this meeting. Let your light shine. In Jesus Christ's name we pray this. I'm going to read what Keith Rutledge had answered some questions to the spokesman review. Brandon was very clearly the most qualified of the applicants for the position.
Hey, is it an agenda item? It needs to be an agenda item.
It has to do with the tax burden, which is finances.
Well, it has to be specific to agenda item.
District residents to fund some. Okay. Doug, you want to come in and I'll just do this later?
Point of order, it needs to be
This
agenda
is
item.
forensic. Okay.
Okay, is it specific? It's got to be specific to the agenda item. Yep. Okay, so just to be very clear, if you speak out, you're going to be asked to leave. Okay, next up is Doug Patterson.
So this is relative to the forensic audit, which is on the agenda. And when I was walking precincts prior to the levy vote, people that indicated that they were going to vote against the levy, the vast majority of them said they wanted to see an audit or a real audit, which essentially translates to forensic audit. Few who use that exact phrase, though. So thought that would be worth knowing.
Good, thank you. Next up is Jared Hughes.
Hope you guys keep it to one, I promise. I'll try to read fast. Mind if I sit down and read this? Okay.
Sure.
Okay. I want to start by making distinction in my role today. During negotiations earlier, my role as an employee who has taught and coached in the district for 25 years. During this meeting, I will be speaking as a lifelong resident, taxpayer, and parent for 2 children in the district. It is in this role I'm asking the board majority to stop the insanity of redundant, expensive audits and pass the proposed budget presented last week. You all gave direction and contributed to the creation of this budget. It is paid for, cutting $2 million off the fiscal year 23, and it always can be amended. You are holding up the business of running a district, and ultimate victims are being the kids and parents for longer you drag this out. Concerning the audit, here's an example of a board member needing training and intelligence, not an audit. This is from last time. It was most concerning when Trustee Brown was questioning payments to my wife, Faith Hughes, asking if she even was an employee. This, like most questions, could have been answered with a short email to Steffi or Susie, but instead he brought it up at this meeting. Not sure about privacy laws when I'm checking into it. To answer your questions, Trustee Brown, the district has been unable for several years since COVID to provide a nurse, paraprofessional, and a decent life and life skills teacher required by the state and federal law for my daughter's education. She's now 12, life skills, and probably the most expensive student this district has. She requires 24-hour nursing care. My wife and I as parents have been trained to take care of the medical needs for this child. We have night nurses. We actually lost a couple recently, so that's kind of, we're hoping for more. And the district's supposed to provide a nurse, one-on-one, and a regular life skills teacher for my daughter. Due to low Medicaid reimbursement and low salary schedule, they have been difficult to fill. So for my daughter to go to school, to experience school, my wife has to take time off of work to take Annika to school. She is technically a district employee and not. She gets paid minimum wage, half of what she gets paid at the Forest Service because the district can't provide it for her. She gets paid mileage as a vendor, which you questioned in front of the district, because she can't ride a bus without a nurse. To summarize, the district is getting off paying pennies for my daughter's services because you've been unable to provide these state and federally mandated services. Maybe in the future you can do your homework and not try to play gotcha politics at board meetings, especially when the district has been skirting their duties for so many years. Okay, as of today, thank you, Mr. Rutledge. Thank you to Margie, and thank you to Trustee Barton for responding. I thank you for responding to that. As of right now, I have not heard from Trustee Brown for these comments. I'm going to shorten this up a little bit because I know I'm running out of time, besides fiscal responsibility. For the audit, $30,000 to $50,000 for a forensic audit, $17,000 to return curriculum that they approved. $200,000 we could have levied in this district because we had an increase of enrollment of 200 students, contrary to public comment. $250,000 to $300,000 for levy relief, but we don't run a levy. Yes?
Time's up.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next up is Whitney Ullman. It's recruitment of new staff. That's not a, it's not a,
You're hiring people tonight, correct? You're just talking about adding staff members? That's what I meant. I was writing it more.
okay.
Also, it's Whitney Ehrman, and I know you know that. I am a former teacher of the school district. You are on the agenda tonight. You are adding support staff for a forensic audit. First of all, no one has ever been against a forensic audit. We just think it's fiscally irresponsible since a lot of people have been criticizing our finances. And we are now down 31 certificated teachers that we are going to have to figure out how to pay and recruit. As a teacher who has been in this district who is being bullied so hilariously by Idaho Freedom Foundation, I am concerned that teachers are not going to want to come to this district at risk of their entire lives being uncovered and being blasted on the internet. And it's really, really scary to think that our kids could not have teachers. And I'm hoping that when you're hiring people in the office, you're also thinking about how we're going to fill our schools. Thanks.
Okay, next up, Marilee Brumley.
My name's Marilee Brumley. I don't think many people have a problem with a forensic audit if it is warranted. I have seen no actual evidence of the need for this audit. I know the district is audited by the state every year. I know independent CPAs have looked over the online postings and found nothing. What have they missed? Please enlighten me with some facts. Is an audit worth tens of thousands of dollars to possibly find nothing? Also, why would the district need to hire temporary help to aid in this audit? It seems to me any self-respecting accounting firm would bring their own staff, not hire people from the business they are auditing. I don't understand that. Why is the budget being proposed by the superintendent with less than a week of working knowledge of this district? From the research I've done, he has no accounting degree or experience. The only business he's run has failed. We had a proposed budget made with the board's direction by the district business manager in time to be submitted to the state, but the same board who gave the direction wouldn't approve it. In my opinion, it should have been submitted and then amended if necessary. Why do we need to hire more district office staff when we have 30 plus vacant positions district-wide that aren't being filled? When I looked on the district website today, the majority aren't even posted. How can you get the quality staff you claim you want if you wait forever to post the jobs? Maybe you have a problem with the people holding some of the jobs. Like I used to tell my kids when they played basketball, you don't have to sit with them on the bus or in the bleachers, but you better pass them the ball if they're open. In life, you need to learn to get along with people. I find your open meeting law statement laughable. You have broken an open meeting law before, during, or after every meeting I've attended. I also find your slanderous comments appalling. Just because no one will do anything about your broken rules doesn't mean they aren't happening. Finally, you are posting for a school district. If you are going to put people's names on your agenda, spell them correctly. The former superintendent's name was Jacqueline Branham with an M. Thank you.
Next up is Katie Elsauser.
Don't hold them against it. I don't mind. Everyone butchers it. It's fine. First, I want to start with thanking the board for putting the public comment on the agenda, and I hope that giving everyone a chance to actually speak will lead to a bit more productive meetings. I appreciate the effort. I'm speaking on the hiring of additional district staff for the forensic audit. I think that is something that should not come from within the district. If an audit firm comes and states they need more assistance, that would make sense. But you're basically hiring someone, which then you lose all unbiased, neutral concept of a forensic audit. I understand that sometimes audits can be extremely difficult and time-consuming for staff, but they're used to it because they do go through an audit every year. They go through it. Those companies come in and sit through them and pull the documents, so it would be the same situation. Additionally, I'm curious on how you're going to go about the forensic audit budget. Have you talked to firms and gotten an idea? Are you sending out for proposals? I think if you would just make sure when you discuss that tonight, you actually discuss it with all of us. I think it'd be better. We'd feel a lot more comfortable if more information was given and not just a vote made, if you just discuss the actual items on there. I disagree with the commentary on the chairman about the open law by legal counsel making a comment. If legal counsel did make that opinion, was it shared with other board members? They are the counsels for them as well. So was that communication sent along with that? Because I feel like putting people's names on an agenda like that seems very targeted and not the cohesiveness for a board. Additionally, on the budget for the forensic, where are you guys proposing the funds coming out of it? And are you going to set a parameter when you do the proposals of their criteria and everything on there? Just if you guys could just be very clear during your discussions of what criteria you put forth, I think that would make everyone feel a little bit better about the cost if they know there's parameters being put in place. And also the budget from the temporary budget, that should be out for public to review. Just the other budget, as soon as it was put together, it was put out for the public where the public could review it before the public commentary. If the superintendent has put together a temporary budget, it shouldn't be a secret. It should be available with the agenda for people to review. I don't think that's a high bar, so I appreciate it, and I'm probably out of time, so thank you for letting it go over. I appreciate that.
Next up, Candace Turner.
I want to address the forensic audit. I am not sure who you're getting your information from, but when I and others started the successful recall proceedings, it wasn't over a number of things that you board members blatantly did wrong. It wasn't about a forensic audit that you put in the paper. We didn't care about the forensic audit. We have asked you a number of times. I personally have asked you a number of times. If you've got evidence, then go to the prosecuting attorney and bring it forward. So it wasn't about that. That's not what the recall is. It's about the disrespect that you have shown this community of any discussion when we ask for discussion. It's about information that you're putting out there that is false.
Okay, no personal attacks.
I'm not personally
This is
attacking.
about a forensic audit.
So the people in Priest River have come forward with a recall on you. It has nothing to do with your, and I want to know who are the significant economic advantages for the levy? Who was going to get that economic advantage because we
Point of
might have
order.
passed an order? That's fine. I don't care. I'll put it out in the paper.
All right.
Because you people are so
Sandy Brower,
You did say that people were speaking out, you would remove them.
It doesn't just go for me. Doesn't just go for me. Okay. Agenda item 5A. I think I might be out of order because you moved them around. But agenda item 5A, I would urge you to reconsider hiring temporary staff to help with the forensic audit. The process has been used as a tool to slander, discredit, cast out, and hold the district and community hostage for far too long. Members of the board have used allegations of misappropriation of fund and corrupt and incompetent management of former and current staff for far too long. Hire the firm already. Let them do the investigation without friends of family of board destroying and or planting evidence. That would be the perception if you hire somebody. That will be the perception. In an article today, board chair said we are recalling him in desperate effort to prevent an audit. Mr. Chair, you are off base. This audit will take place with or without you here. If there's evidence of misappropriation of funds, the audit's going to go on whether you're sitting in that chair or not. You should be recruiting teachers, not temporary staff, to ensure your allegations are founded. Agenda item 5C. I support the hiring of a board clerk, but wonder why would it say temporary unless something unethical is about to take place later in this meeting? Why are we needing temporary office staff as well? Why is this an agenda item? Hiring for vacancies is not usually required to be approved for by the board. I smell something here. It doesn't smell good. Agenda 5D. The language used to describe the agenda item is unnecessary and inflammatory. Is the intention of the board chair to oppress board members that have a difference of opinion by publicly denouncing them? The board chair recently in an email to me indicated board members were not acting in good faith and that they intended to act unilaterally to advance a political agenda. I agree with you, but it's not the board members you're talking about. Please, please, I urge you, don't burn our house down on your way out. Do not destroy us to advance your political agenda. For us, this has nothing to do with politics. This has nothing to do with a forensic audit. This is our home. These are our people. Please resign.
next up, Kylie Hepburn.
Hi, Kylie Hepfer. Again, with the budget for the forensic audit, I think that 20, 30, however many thousands of dollars it's going to cost would be better spent towards our school resource officer. Again, I want our children to be safe, and if we could allocate those funds to something more useful, that would be great. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. And again, you get private security and our kids, like I have to worry about my poor little daughter possibly like the school getting shut up and then nobody's gonna be there. Like, is that gonna be great for these kids? Okay, thanks.
Thanks. All right, next up is new business for our minute agenda. I need a motion to approve. Oh, I'm sorry. Got yours right here, sorry. Next up, Paul Turco.
Just check and see if anybody else wants to comment after he's done.
Okay.
Gonna edit on the fly to take out some of my personal attacks. I read a letter today by the chairman in today's minor, and I hope the community members took the advice and are watching, because I feel like they're being lied to. You claim that we'll do anything to stop a forensic audit, when in reality, we begged you to do one months before the levy was to be presented. You didn't do it then because you wouldn't be able to be deceitful and spread misinformation and create doubt before the levy vote. You didn't do it then because there's nothing there. The only reason you want to do it now is spread more lies and spend more of what little money the district has. You lied when you said a 4-day schedule would help retain teachers. You lied when Trustee Barton called you out when you manipulated Brandon Durst's contract after committee negotiations. Mr. Durst, you lied when you claimed to have completed superintendent training, when you did not. You lied
All right.
for employment the night
That's
the board
enough.
voted you in, and lying makes you illegitimate. Trustee Reinbold, last week you started to vote with your head and heart, but you got scolded like a pet dog and changed your vote.
That's enough.
You told
You're
me you
done.
were an honest man.
You're done.
You are who you're associated with. And these guys are lying to the district, to you, they're manipulating
Enough
everybody.
said.
It's not right what they're doing. You may agree with what some of the stuff they're
Enough
doing,
said.
but it's not the way to do it.
You're
I
done.
learned in public
Out.
school
Leave.
what's right and wrong, and that's more important
Officer, please
than any
please
test scores that can be manipulated.
Please remove him.
They're doing it wrong. You have the most biggest responsibility right now. The next few weeks are on you, Troy. Make sure you can live with yourself, man. Because you don't have to vote on their political agenda anymore. Be honest, the way you are. We know you're honest. Vote with your head and heart. Do the right thing. What they're doing is not right.
Okay, moving to new business. I need a motion for item, now it's A, for hiring temporary board clerk, district office support.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to...
Speak up, please.
Sorry. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to consider what would now be 5A.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second?
What is 5A?
It's approval on hiring temporary board clerk. and
I'll
district
second the
office
motion.
support. Okay. Trustee Hall seconds the motion. Debate?
I would like a presentation to clarify further what this is about. And I believe this was, do we have any more information than just saying what we just said?
Okay.
So I'd like to have that presented to myself and the public.
Yeah.
Durst, would you please speak to that?
Sure thing. Trustee Hall, and appreciate the question. So just so the public is aware, Steffi Pavey resigned as board clerk effective June 30th. So we do not currently have a board clerk for this meeting. And so we need to have that position opened up for announcement, given the time that we have. I went out and recruited somebody that could fill the position temporarily. And the idea being that we would have somebody who wasn't going to be applying for the job later. So we wouldn't give any unfair advantage to one candidate over another. And it's somebody that I know will do the job well. And so part of the idea too is, and Trustee Hall, just so you're aware, part of the idea, obviously, as you know, we've talked about this, the board clerk position is hired by the board, and any office staff is hired by the superintendent. And so just in the name of transparency, I thought it'd be wise for us to do this in open meeting. But I have a contract, temporary employment contract typed up and ready to go. And I think we certainly should try to fill this position with a full-time permanent person as soon as possible. But given the lack of notice that we had in terms of needing to fill this role, we need to act judiciously so that we can continue to provide the service to the patrons that they need.
Do we have a name? I mean, you said you had somebody in mind.
Yes,
Can
Trustee.
you
Yes,
say that?
and she's here. Her name is Randy Parody, and so she's here. She's worked in this sort of stuff. She hasn't been a board clerk before, but I'm happy to help train her for the next couple weeks.
Hey, please, you get to leave. No, you're leaving.
Her name is,
Officer, please remove her.
her name is Brandy Parody.
Was Brandy or Randy?
Brandy with a B.
Perry?
Parody.
Parody?
Yes.
Okay. And is she in the district?
She owns property in the district. She lives just on the other side of the county line.
You gotta leave.
And Brandy is here if you want to have her make an introduction. If you want to yield the floor to her, Trustee Hall, she'd be willing, I think she'd be willing to introduce herself.
Superintendent Durst, I'd like to review the contract and
Sure.
maybe some clarification on her,
Sure thing.
her qualifications.
So,
You're next.
Happy to go. There's a policy for hiring which they're violating, and Brandy is on Facebook totally all the time, denouncing our public schools. So this, again, is a sign of corruption. I will leave, but on my
Please.
way out, I will continue to say that you are a liar and you are corrupt. And so are you.
Okay, that one goes to.
And at what point will she go under a criminal background check before
would-
she
would-
starts?
She would need to start that immediately. Give it, Trustee Hall, if it's okay, I would just point out that she would need to start that, she would need to apply for that, but given that she's not going to be interacting with any students in the immediate term, then I think that we would be able to just bring her on a temporary basis and then go through that process.
What I'm concerned about is having access to employee files.
Right, and I would make sure.
That concerns me.
Yes. And I would say that she would not have access to those until that's done.
You know, I agree, we need to get a board coordinator soon, but I want to make sure for the board's sake that you're not violating any of our HR policies, to make sure that doesn't go back on the board as a collective, which you guys have been working on. So to make sure we're not breaking board policy or state HR rules, I know that when we hire people in district, it's an 8 to 10 day span before you can even, and you have to have equal opportunity employment, where you have to have applications of at least 2 to 3 people. You have to have a hiring committee, which of course you're the board, but you guys have not committed to a hiring committee. Does that make sense? I'm asking as a clarification.
I can clarify that.
And
Okay.
it's gonna come back on the board, the district as a cost to fight this grievance if you guys are in the wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so Jared, I can answer that question. So the board policy allows, our 5,200 personnel policies allow for the filling of vacancies. And because all employment at the classified level are at will, we're doing this in a temporary basis. And so that's why if you look at if you were seeing the contract that I just shared with Trustee Barton, the temporary contract it's not benefits accruing. It is also not, it also states clearly that this position is temporary and will be terminated as soon as a permanent replacement is found. If we're going to go, we do need to go through a full hiring process. You're absolutely right. We could but from a legal HR standpoint, because we're going to be directing the hours of work, we're not allowed to call this person an independent contractor because that would be a violation of employment law. So in the near term, we are allowed to hire people on a short-term basis to provide work for the district in the same way that we would be able to hire somebody, in any capacity outside of the certified space for a short-term space. So, but I appreciate the question.
And then have you guys been able to prove or disprove conflict of interest at all? Because that would come back as a grievance as well. Nepotism, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there's no, I'm confident that none of those things would transpire in this. And if
If evidence comes up that there is confidential,
yes.
we're open to.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
And then what are the controls? I know when we sign checks, more people have to sign checks as one person. When you go down to open files, right, you have to be hired by the district to make sure that those files are sound and not, in legal terms, probably not contaminated, okay, breached, whatever. What quality controls you have to make sure that they're not going to be breached by an employer that, first of all, doesn't have background check, because they may, I'm just trying to make sure you guys.
So let's make sure we're talking about the same thing, because it sounds like we're maybe mixing a couple of different agenda items here. And Mr. Chairman, if it's okay if I continue to respond. So this person is working as district office support. So we don't currently have someone working during the summer to provide support to patrons that come in. That's number one. We also don't currently have a clerk. And given the amount of things that we have to get accomplished in the next 2 months, you've already heard several people talk about the number of recruitments we have to do. It's not fair to ask our current staff to be doing those additional those additional responsibilities plus their current job, which is already going to be hard enough. And so what we're looking to do is just provide some support temporarily until we can hire somebody on a full-time basis to be able to fill in. So that's.
Okay, and then, sorry, last question, sorry. What if somebody else offered their services for this position and we're an equal opportunity employer? Are you guys open to another person coming to do that?
I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. Because this is ultimately a position that reports to this is a position that reports directly to the board, and it's one that reports directly to me. And so, to the extent that I want to have somebody who's working directly for me that I know will follow my direction, that's very important.
Point of order.
And I hope you guys understand, I'm trying to protect you guys from grievances and make sure that we follow the rules so that it doesn't come back to bite you or the district. That's one of my concerns right now.
Yep.
Okay. Any further debate?
We're looking at the contract. I do want to just sort of say one thing. When I looked at the policies, the hiring policies, and Susan, I would like to look at it after you. 5100, under board action, the superintendent has the authority to implement an alternative hiring procedure when she deems it necessary in the best interest of the district. So there is, I want to say, there is a kind of caveat out a little bit, so that the superintendent has the authority to temporarily employ certified and classified employees pending confirmation by the Board of Trustees. It says employ certified and classified employees. So I did look this up. There is sort of an emergency provision on this, just so people know, but I do want to look at the contract. I do want to put a time limit on the contract, so that if we did, if we are looking at approving it, I would want to put a time limit so then that we would follow the normal process of hiring, the normal hiring procedures. This is only a temporary. In some ways, this is a temporary gap because, as we know, Steffi has been doing triple, double time, and we have to have a board clerk. So we need to at least look at that temporary fulfillment. And I would want to limit access to employee files and only be, in this case, maybe answering phones, doing minimal things in the office, and only under the, and working with the board. But there's a whole thing of board clerk, or board books and everything else that has to be known, and the person is going to have to follow Idaho code and board clerk responsibilities and our policies and procedures.
And Trustee Hall, you probably saw that in the contract, but it specifically states that the contract will terminate as soon as a full-time replacement is hired.
And I would like to try to put a deadline on that.
That's
I know
fine.
that's what it said.
I'd like us to hire somebody sooner than later. So if we want to put a date certain in there, I think that's definitely advisable.
Okay, and I can't see.
I think my intention would be, just to answer your question, I appreciate that. My intention would be to immediately post this position and hopefully have it filled within the next month. Because I don't want to have this stringing on. I'd like to have somebody who can come in and start taking on the full responsibilities of the role. And I've already worked with HR to start getting the job announcement posted. We haven't posted it yet because I don't have approval of the board to do that, but as soon as it is, we'll get it out there so we can get it hired on a full-time basis. You're welcome.
Superintendent Durst?
Yes.
I did look at the contract. I agree. We definitely need to send maybe a 30-day
Okay, that's fine.
timeframe.
Yep.
And I am firmly going to suggest she gets a background check,
Okay.
just to protect us
I
on the
agree.
board and
Yep.
everyone else that is or has relations in that district office, to protect our kids, to protect us.
Yeah.
So we need a background check in 30 days. That would be.
If we want to put an addendum on that, I think that's appropriate.
And I'm just looking, I skipped over me to trustee Brown, or Vice Chair Brown.
And I apologize, I didn't email this to the entire board. I was afraid of being accused of a serial meeting if I had done that, so. Chairman Rutledge,
Yes.
it may be advisable just to go at recess for 5 minutes so that the trustees can look at that.
Okay. Chairman calls for a 5-minute recess.
We'll let you do it, but I just, we need to do
You want to put an addendum on there that says?
addendum, and we'll just say that we're making a motion to be an addendum for the superintendent of that.
Okay.
I mean, that's what we.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
Just because you can't even walk into a classroom.
Yeah, totally agree.
And so the background check, I think, is a must.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty simple process.
Yeah.
Go get fingerprinted.
Yeah.
Get
Yeah.
started on it.
Yep. I'd like to have the permanent person in place within 3 weeks.
And this is a win-win for us because then she can volunteer in the district or she can be a part of the district.
Yeah.
And
So the other
Because
thing
it's good
that,
for one year.
if it is true that she's supposed to be agreed to, but it not, is the policy that all of us need to be doing,
About disparaging the district, yeah.
is policy 30,
Yeah.
53, 25.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if she's not,
Yeah.
that's,
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
that district.
Yep. Yep. Makes sense.
Okay, so that would be the other.
Does it otherwise look, I mean, I can't look at it briefly, but it's pretty standard.
pretty thorough, but there's a lot.
But I'm gonna, that would be the other,
Okay, that's
couple
fine.
other things
Yeah.
that put it on
Yeah,
there.
that's fine.
So he needs to recognize that.
Troy, do you want to look at it too? Okay. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Are you still reviewing?
Yeah, just almost, you gave people 5 minutes, so I'm not quite under, I'm still working on the 5.
Sorry,
It's a pretty standard contract. It's actually overly thorough, but that's how a contract should be written,
That would be,
to cover every possible outcome.
Right.
did you see anything, because you read it, I've been reading through the contracts before, did you see anything that jumped out? Background check, following that policy, everyone should be following that policy. He's not, so I would. Okay.
Okay. Then we can. Let me- I can explain why we have a temporary person on the same district. You don't get that. That was assumed. Approve the hiring of an independent contractor to assist. Yeah. And And like I said, the guy from I Daily, he's like, he said, if you can get somebody to put all this stuff together for us in a nice compilation, it's easy for us to read, it makes us go a lot faster, and it saves you a lot of money.
Okay, so it would be, chime in, so the motion's going to be the approval of temporary board clerk,
I'm thinking the same thing. I'm getting pretty parched. I left my class in the car.
pursuant to
Your surrender soda?
policy
Your surrender soda?
5100.
That's what we call LaCroix. Surrender soda. Because it's French.
Contract will terminate
That's what happens when you're the German family.
within 30 days.
I think we're okay. We're fine. Yeah. Thank you.
Initiated.
Are we?
Not to
Trustee, all the finish.
will not be finished. Will not.
It's a long contract. There's only like 3 paragraphs that are really the important stuff. The rest of it's like, you're not going to do this. If you create something, you're going to give a test. You're not going to share anything that you see. You're going to.
So is this person also going to be created or is it
So this will come out of. So this is. So this person's going to do 4 things. The board clerk.
Brandy.
Well, not this, but the full-time person. The board clerk, the dispatcher for the transportation.
I'm putting together
The
the
receptionist.
So temporary hire of
my
Brandy
executive assistant.
Parady, Paradee.
Can't hardly keep track of.
All right. Meeting's back in session. Further debate?
No, I'll make a motion, but with the addendums included in that motion to the contract.
The addendum?
We're looking at several addendums that this contract would not go into effect prior to a successful background check, criminal background check, that it would be terminated 30 days or before, and that the employee must follow policy 5325, which is employee use of social media sites, including personal sites, while under this contract. And I will make a motion to approve it based on those items on the addenda, an addendum to this contract.
Okay,
I'll second that.
okay. I have a first and a second on the amended contract. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the contract is adopted with the amendments. Okay, next up is, I need a motion for consideration and approval of scope, design, and budgeting of a forensic audit with an RFP designed by the superintendent with hiring of a temporary staff to assist.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to.
Please speak up.
I make a motion to consider the approval, or excuse me, for consideration and approval of a scope of design and budgeting for the forensic audit as presented by the superintendent and hiring a temporary staff to assist in completing a forensic audit.
Okay, I have a first. Do I have a second?
I guess I got a question on that.
Well, bring it to the floor.
Okay, a second.
Okay, I have a first and a second. We need debate. Would you please clarify?
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the questions that were asked, because I know there were several. Let me,
A motion to bring it to the table.
Yeah.
so so there were several questions that were asked during public comment that I think needed to be addressed. So when I reached out to several forensic auditing firms, national firms, and to help with the beginning outline of a scope of this forensic audit, just knowing that it was something that was going to be on the board agenda. And when I had the conversation with the manager for Eide Bailey for the Western United States, who does all their forensic audits for school districts, he made a couple of recommendations, and one of them that he recommended, he said, one of the things that drives costs up the most is when a district does not provide us documentation in an organized and thorough manner. He said, because then we have to chase things, and that's very difficult. He recommended that, he said, obviously you don't have to hire us, but he said, I imagine all of our peers would feel the same way, that it would be very helpful that if you don't have he said to have someone in your office dedicated to compiling all these records. Now, obviously, we don't have anybody in our staff right now who's capable of doing that. I also that would have the bandwidth. Now, not they don't have the ability, but they wouldn't have the time to do it. And so, what I've proposed, what I'm going to recommend to the board, is that, and I've identified someone who's outside of the district who has no vested interest in this district's, finances, to be able to provide those services, who does this professionally, who does these sorts of things, so that we can save money on the actual audit itself. Because, again, looking at the professional recommendation of those who do this work, and the fact that I think we also want to make sure that we're not spending money that doesn't need to be spent. I would also add that one of the other recommendations that we had from the individual from Eide Bailey was that we take a two-step approach, that we have a preliminary report, and then at that point, after the preliminary report is given to the board, that it is decided if they want to do a further investigation. And that would also limit the potential fiscal impact to the district, so that way they could say, depending upon the information that they've reviewed and collected, they'd be able to say, this is worth further investigation, or we don't think we're going to find anything else, you may as well stop it here. So that way we have some defined boundaries as to what we're looking at. And my goal would be to try to limit the cost to this as much as we possibly can. And that's one of the reasons that I'm recommending that we do have somebody that's external to the district that helps provide those documents and provides as a point of contact to whoever we select through our RFP process, which of course the board will need to approve it at a later date.
Several questions.
Sure.
I did several hours of looking into forensic audit. I hate to say it, unlike Chair Rutledge was pointing out, I'm not against a forensic audit. I deeply am offended by the article or the letter to the editor signed by the chair of the board saying that I was trying to do the recall because of the forensic audit. I have done several things. I reached out to Eide Bailey. I looked at possibilities around the country. I researched school districts doing forensic audits. I would strongly, I know what everybody talked about, but I would strongly recommend that we limit the scope. I looked at one that I really like that said, this is from the forensic audit from Cumberland, Ohio, the school district over there at Hancock County Board of Education did do a forensic audit. They limited with the first cost no more than $5,000, and then they looked to see if there was anything there. Their findings, many of the findings are nothing, but I hate to say it, given what we're running into every time with a levy, and I know that we can go back and forth, who's right, who's wrong. I am looking at doing a preliminary scope of an audit, no more than 5,000, limiting it, doing a preliminary, and that also Eide Bailey had a great checklist that the name of that checklist seems like it was written for us, Fraud Prevention and Detection Checklist for Organizations with Limited Segregation of Duties. And it basically, you went down through this and you could say, yes or no, is this happening or this not happening? And what I would strongly suggest is maybe looking at that checklist, identifying ones that we said, are there transfers to unknown accounts? Yes. then identify the ones that we need to maybe do a deeper dive on. But I'm tired of being the school district, being under the gun, under the microscope, getting us into, having us go against each other. And so I would look at, and I understand what Mr. Durst, Superintendent Durst said about bringing in somebody outside. I would want to know who that name is, because it has to be neutral. It has to be neutral. And if it's not, if there's an impression that it's not, then that person is not the right person. So that's and I am I'm insulted. I have tried my best. Yes, I've done, maybe you're not agreeing with certain things, but to say that I am doing what I can against this forensic audit, I would challenge any of the members on this board to have done that. I spent my birthday doing this the other day, and I did hours before that. So please do not make allegations against me when they're not true. Thank you.
And just as a follow-up, because we didn't talk, I have to make a statement of clarification on the article. Guest opinion, recall an attempt to prevent audit by Keith Rutledge, Chairman, West Bonner County School District Board of Trustees. That is us. We are united. In the article, I quote, it says, going forward, I urge every district resident to watch the board meetings closely, as Trustee Hall and Barton will attempt every trick in the book to discredit the board and delay the forensic audit until after the recall. Just for clarification, first of all, the recall has nothing to do with the audit or to prevent it. You're not representing your zones. That's why you were recalled. Second, as in here it says guest opinion. I don't care if you write an article. Don't title it Chairman representing West Bonner County School District Board of Trustees. You called us out on this in public, and there's no need to do that. I am okay with a forensic audit. I have no problem with that. The problem I have is with it's going to cost us $30,000 to $50,000. If we can do a narrowed scope and do it, go for it. We spent 9 work sessions, countless hours, on the budget. We didn't find anything, nothing. Have your forensic audit, do it, narrow the scope, try to keep the budget down. $40,000 is what a parapro would make in our district for a whole year. Oh, 2, okay, well. Further, making accusations of 2 of your board members. That's pretty divisive, very disappointing. 4th, I'm not against a forensic audit, again, just the hefty sum that it's gonna cost our district. Remember, we're a unit, not individuals. Don't sign my name to something that I don't agree with. I don't care if you write the paper. It's an opinion paper. Don't write it, signed Board of Trustees. Remember, I would like to be copied in from now on any of our lawyers' communication with you or anyone else in here. It is our lawyer. We should all be included in that. I say go for the forensic audit, narrow the scope, get an outside bid. We have to find somebody that will be effective, efficient, and will represent us well. Thank you.
I've got a question. As a parent of a high school kid,
There's no comments right now.
I got a question.
No comments right now, please.
Okay, is a question and a comment the same?
No questions right now, no comments.
You'd have really liked my comment. I shall. You would have really liked it. You have a good night.
So just a follow-up, Brandon, did you get a sense of what, I mean, would up to $5,000 give us kind of an initial from them?
To be really frank, I don't think that would get us anywhere. Here's what I think would happen is if we cap it at that amount, I don't think we're going to get very many responsive bids. And that would be my concern. I understand, Trustee Hall, your point about trying to limit the fiscal impact as much as possible, but I also wonder what the utility is if we're not getting responsive bids from auditors that we would be interested in hiring. And if you look at these national firms like Ernst & Young or Deloitte or Eide Bailly or anything like that, it's not worth their time to respond to a RFP for $5,000.
Well, what I would suggest is that there be maybe 3, look at what they would charge for a preliminary, because I'm not approving the final contract until we see it.
Yeah, right.
But this is basically approving an RFP to go out for a forensic audit, is
Right.
my understanding.
Correct.
I would limit it saying, what would it cost to do a preliminary search based on the checklist?
Right.
And then what would the next step be? I don't want to give anybody an open checkbook. Doesn't matter who the it is.
Yeah,
And I think it needs to be, the other thing is, I mean, if nothing is found, if no misappropriations is found and it's procedural, I mean, I guess my question is, where is there any indication that people are saying that they're concerned about specifically? And can we start with both the checklist and that? I mean, there's been things floating around in papers, and I think people need to stop, we need to discuss these things out in open. There's supposedly a group of people who've been meeting with the board chair and the vice chair regarding potential concerns about the finances. I think that all needs to be disclosed. But I would start with here's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, what can you give me?
And Trustee Hall, I think that was my intention with how I was going to structure the RFP, was going to have responsive bidders identify bids for each phase and identify what the scope of each one of those would be, and then also say, the advancement to another phase would again require an additional vote of the board to authorize the disbursement of those funds, or the authorization for, once the audit's complete, to disperse additional funds.
And then I would want to find out from them, obviously, the time frame. I did see different time frames in this. And very often, I mean, I saw that obviously they'll be following the forensic statement on standards for forensic services, the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, the Code of Professional Standards of Association of Certified Fraud Examiners.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that they'll be doing that, but obviously this one that was $5,000 was just, that article was, it was a couple of years ago, was 219, so it's probably a little bit more, but I definitely don't want to give an open checkbook, given the constraints, but I want this behind us.
Yeah.
I don't want the community to keep coming back and saying, do this. And I hate to be pushed to that extent, but it just is, it's a point at, we're spending more money fighting this and not, getting through the levy when we need critical dollars. And unfortunately, I see that this is going to be a necessity.
So the direction I hear, and just to make sure the board is, the direction I hear from you, Trustee Hall, is to make sure that we have this be a multi-phased approach. We define our scope in each phase so that way it allows for the responsive bidders to be able to provide an accurate bid based off of those things. And obviously the board can review the bids once that's done to approve the actual hiring of the contractor.
Yes, I would say so, and I think it's premature to hire the temporary person until we figure out who the forensic auditor is. So you've requested, I think there needs to be an RFP going out to the front to get to with the scope and the design and of the forensic audit. I don't think we need to hire temporary staff at this point in time until we get those RFPs back and we see who we've got. And maybe one of them doesn't need it. Maybe I would wait. That it seems to be jumping before the cart before the horse to hire a temporary staff at this point until we see what we've got, to choose the forensic auditor and then make that decision at the same time that we approve the contract.
I guess, Trustee Hall, I appreciate that. I think one of the things that I was looking at is trying to be as expeditious on this as we could be. And if we know that we're going to need to be able to, we're going to need to start creating a record of transactions or whatever it is, that we can do that in the interim while we're waiting for that RFP to be approved. So that way we can, as soon as the RFP is approved, that we can hit the ground running.
I
But-
would disagree, because
Okay.
you haven't had a forensic auditor in the office doing some preliminary discussions.
Okay.
And that you may be spending your time, especially if they ran through this checklist that Edie Bailey has, they may be going, and they did that as an initial, or they've got their own checklist. They may be going down one way and you may be going down the other way, and somebody's spending time and money doing that when you shouldn't be doing that. But I would do that forensic audit first, because we don't want outside people, and that a temporary staff person would also have to go through a background check. We don't want a temporary person coming in, looking through documents that aren't necessary, that we don't know right then and there that we need to have them look at.
And the lawyer that we do hire, they may, just for this limited amount I've been researching, some of them will send in their own person to come in and pull the documents that they need. So I would have to agree with Trustee Hall. I think we get the scope and sequence, do your steps, get it approved, get it going, find somebody, and then see what they would like us to do. I think there'd be a lot of people that would be in favor of that.
And there would be an emotion to approve my motion would be to approve your going out and designing a forensic audit, an RFP for a forensic accountant, and to define the scope and design, and doing it phase 1, 2, and 3, or on sort of having those who are experts in the field break it down into different phases that they think are most appropriate, and having dollar amounts with each of those phases, and that we then we approve phase 1 or phase 2 as if there were an architectural, as we've done with architectural designs. I know people think we went over and above, but we did something similar.
Okay. So is there a motion on the table?
I'll make a motion to proceed with developing and releasing a request RFP for a forensic auditor.
Okay. Okay, I have a motion from Trustee Hall. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
I have a second from Trustee Reinbold. All those in favor of approving superintendent to write an RFP for forensic audit with phase gates to be approved by the board, is that correct?
And I would say part of that motion would be to go ahead and release the RFP out and circulate it.
Okay, and to release the RFP to circulate. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Okay. Next up is consideration and approval of a temporary budget as proposed by the superintendent. I need a motion to approve the budget.
I'll make a motion to bring the budget to the table.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, I have a motion to bring the motion to the budget to the table. Do I have a second?
I second the consideration.
Okay, I have a second for consideration. Debate. Would you like to speak to it?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, just so we're all clear what's happening here, and I'll make sure the public is aware too. The board's negotiation team is still in negotiations with our association. And while I really appreciate the work that's been done by the business manager prior to this point, I also don't want to circumvent that negotiations process. And so what I'm recommending that we do, and this is, again, I have all the expectations that we'll be back here in 2 or 3 weeks revising this budget with the final budget. But we need to get something done so it's on the record so that we can start paying our bills and make sure that we have the ability to start hiring staff. So what this does is it's identical to the prior budget that was proposed, with one exception, which is rather than an automatic 10% increase in the base for our salary, for our certified staff, this is a 3.5% increase pending further negotiation from the association. And obviously, if that number could change based on how that negotiation process works out. But this gives us a base budget to be working with. And like I said, it's fully my intention that this is not the final budget that we have, but we have to have something. And our business manager did check with the Department of Education, and they confirmed that there's no legal implication for us or for you approving a budget that's materially different than the one that was posted in the newspaper. That was something that Trustee Hall had asked me about, and that was a legitimate concern. And so apparently, our business manager had previously checked into that question, and that she was told that wasn't an issue. So it is my recommendation that this budget be adopted on a temporary basis, and then pending the finalization of the association's negotiation with our negotiations team and the approval of that negotiation with the board. And so once we do that, then we can I think then you guys can revise this budget to reflect that negotiated agreement.
Okay. Further comment?
Do we have copies of those?
Yes. Oh, sorry, I thought that.
Can that be shown up on the, can that be displayed?
As part of the negotiating team, I asked a question.
Yes, please.
I'm not representing the negotiating team, this is as a district member, but also, I'm pretty sure you can't set a number on the budget for negotiating because you're actually negotiating with the board, if that makes sense. You cannot negotiate that number from 10 to 3.7%. You can put in the budget that is proposed, and that was in the proposal, and it's an estimate, right? If you change it to a specific amount, that cuts into negotiated agreement and the negotiating power of our unit. And I just want to make sure,
Yeah.
because I don't want to get locked in and then file a grievance, a big one, that's going to cost you guys even more money when you guys lose that grievance, because we cannot, by law, we have the negotiating power to do that. Let's make sure we don't lock in a number, because that's outside the realm of this budget process. If that makes sense.
Mr.
If you
Chairman.
want to budget something, you can put in there, through allocations of budget salaries or something there, but do not lock it in as a number.
Mr. Chairman, just to,
Wait.
It's back pay targeting.
Mr. Chairman, what we're attempting to do here is to make the money that was left, that was unallocated, was put into contingency, so it could be reallocated back to salaries if that's where the negotiation team ends up. There's nothing in this budget that specifically calls out what a percentage increase is. That is still pending. I'm telling you how the number was calculated, but there's nothing in the budget that specifically calls it out. And so what I'm saying is that there's nothing here that's binding on the negotiation, on the negotiated agreement that the union has with the board. And so there'd be no basis for a grievance from the association, because it's still going to be based on whatever the negotiated agreement is that's signed by the board and the union. That will be the operating document by which the budget will have to reflect.
But you're operating in bad faith, and you're basically constraining and limiting our negotiating power, if that makes sense.
So the alternative is to put zero in salaries and just say we're going to wait and see what the negotiation says.
That's impossible, because you have to.
What I'm saying is, so there has to be, and I hear what you're saying. What I'm telling you is that there has to be a number in that salary number, right?
And what I'm trying to say is, if you leave it as is, it was created per board direction with our allocations for salaries from the state, our allocations from, and in good faith discussions as approval, right? And so you're proposing less than our new allocations and salaries and benefits for the year.
So this proposed budget is in compliance with the state law, just so we're clear.
Okay. So I believe that the board of trustees, but I want to make sure that you're protected, trustees, with a grievance, because if it comes back and we hear that we've broken good faith negotiations, because your negotiations started 2 weeks ago, and you cannot break that once we started. Okay? And so I know it's cart and horse, like we've been talking about all night, but I want to make sure the board is protected, and it's better protected if you keep it as is, because the board created this through the directive, and now it's being amended, keep it the way it was. It doesn't affect the fiscal, it's all the revenues, and more about revenues and expenditures are covered within our salaries and benefits allocations, state, federal funding, and through general fund balances and ESSER funds. So the money is there. Okay? Taking it away from something you guys already directed us to do basically is bad faith. And so if you want to continue in bad faith, or you want to continue in good faith, and I'm trying to be honest with you guys, because it could come back to bite you guys.
Let me just interject. No agreement has been made between the board and the union. None. No, let's stop. Because I want to get this on the record, because this is very important. This is very important. This is very important. There's nothing on the record right now that's an offer to the union in terms of the salaries and benefits for next school year. Nothing. There's no record that's been made that says that. Any preliminary discussions are just that, they're preliminary. Any proposed budgets are just that, proposed. They are not binding. And so just to make it really clear, because I want to make sure that if we're talking about grievances, that we get this out on the record, because it's very important. There was not an official offer made. And until such time as the board makes that an official offer, that nothing is binding. I appreciate what you're saying, but at the end of the day, the board is the only statutorily empowered entity that can make a decision about what the budget says and what it doesn't say. And to the extent that you're still in the middle of negotiations and those negotiations have not completed, again, this number can and probably will change. But to the extent that the board needs to pass a budget today to be in compliance with state law, we are stuck with a situation where we have to make a decision. It's not negotiating in bad faith. It's saying, here's our base that we're working from, and we're going to go back to the negotiating table with the association and continue to negotiate the salaries and benefits. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Just to make sure the board, I want to make sure you guys are still allowing us to negotiate in good faith.
Yes, that's the idea.
I know you want to do the same thing.
Yes.
Because we work pretty well together the last couple days.
Yeah, and it does, it says
If you
proposed.
put constraints on that good faith bargaining, it just looks bad, and like Barbie said, there's a lot of division, and if you can create some better faith, I think in the long way, and you can always amend it down. It's easier to amend it down because the money is there. The expenditures and revenues have been proven to be in our accounts, and it's easier to be in good faith now and then negotiate down than, I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. Okay, and that's just, I want to make sure that we continue bringing the community together and the teach staff together instead of a further division. This is another spike, right, in the division, and I'm hoping you guys understand, it's not, you can amend it down, and we can just don't have it on nail. Thank you.
So, I guess being on the negotiation committee, is the West Bonner County School District Education Association also, are you open to negotiations down if that needs to come to it? I mean,
It has to be, I'm just speaking as a
no, can't we?
committee member right now.
No, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm getting bad.
All this discussion has to be negotiated.
Right, it just,
Okay.
yeah, no,
I'm just as a person in the community saying,
so,
representing the community,
so
try to build relationships instead of starting.
we're going down the wrong road, but, I mean, I understand what you're saying.
All right, further discussion?
Yeah, I guess my question is.
I can't hear you, Troy.
What?
I couldn't hear you. What was that?
What would be the difference between negotiating? I'm trying to. I guess I'm up in the air as to where we start at on the negotiation. I don't, to me, I'm not part of the negotiations, I don't know nothing about it. But I don't know what difference it makes where we start at. Whether we start at what, like Coach Hughes was saying, or if we start at 3.5. And I know 3.5 is never stated in there, that's just a number.
Yeah.
So the difference is, you see it primarily in the unappropriated balances of the contingency fund that we have here. And so what I'm recommending that the board do is approve a budget that allows there to be a remainder in the contingency fund, which can then be reallocated someplace else if that's the outcome of a negotiated agreement. That's what I'm recommending.
Superintendent Durst, I'd just like to make a comment. I think that we've already posted it. We've requested it of our business manager. I think we leave it as is. You can always negotiate down. But right now, we're 31 certified teachers down. And if we start taking those percentages away from our union, it's going to be not good for us as a board and as a school district. My motion would be to continue and approve the temporary budget in place with as is all numbers.
And I would second that at this point.
As a good faith.
At good faith, and also I think we are trying to retain and recruit. I understand we still are in negotiations, and I won't, we've got to move through negotiations, and we can amend this budget forth, but this was what was published, so I'm going with the one that was published in the paper.
Okay.
We don't want to upset.
Mr. Chairman, yeah. When I started looking at the budget, when I got put on the finance committee a year ago, and at that meeting, we weren't shown all of the different general ledgers, we weren't shown all the paperwork, and it was like, well, we'll get that back to you later. From that point forward, for me, it was like really important to just keep digging and finding what is missing, because there's been a lot that hasn't made sense. You look at some of these spreadsheets, and, by our business manager's own comments, they're not aligned, they couldn't come out right. And for somebody who understands computer talk, that's great, it makes sense to them. But when your fiduciary responsibility is to be able to tell all of the citizens that all of the money is being spent appropriately on educational items for the students, but you don't have all that information in front of you, it's really difficult to do that. And there's been an awful lot of comments about, oh, well, you just don't know what you're doing, and this, that, and the other. If you're given good data to be able to look at, then yes, you can find the information. But that's not what's happened. And I've been asking for a year to be able to do that. As a fiduciary responsibility, as a trustee, I want to know where the money is spent. I would think all of you want to know where the money is spent. So when we got that budget on the last meeting to look at it, again, I still didn't really have any data behind it that could quantify what those numbers are for. I want to be able to tell you that it makes sense. No one told us when we looked at this job, and it's a job. Everybody says, oh, it's volunteer and it should be easy. Yeah. Okay, this is a serious job, and I take that responsibility 100%. When you look at these numbers, they don't add up. I'm not sure that even this right here, like you said, it's just a proposal. I understand that. And we have to put something forward. When I got to sit with the superintendent last week for the first time and actually hear some of his comments on ideas on how to streamline things in the district, it was like, wow, all right, maybe we can actually do a business approach to this. This job, as long as I'm sitting in this chair, and maybe that's only 55 more days, but I want to be able to tell you the truth. And I think that we all want to be able to negotiate in good faith with the staff that we have. But we also need to be able to look at how do we put sports where they should be, on the fields. No one wants them going anywhere. But we've got to look at a serious budget so we can figure out what we're doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So I do think people need to know the numbers. I mean, one of the things is that this really should have been publicized. I know we need to pay the bills, but the public has not seen what's in front of our hands. And that's disconcerting to me. They saw the other one that was published. It was published in the paper, and this was not posted like it should have been. And that leaves us wide open for a violation of open meeting, because this is definitely the summary statement for the school budget was supposed to be posted, and people were supposed to be able to see it. So, I mean, that's my concern. If we need to prove something right now, then the one that was posted and was available through the last meeting is the one that we need to do, because, but if we don't need to do the bills right now, then it needs to be posted again and people need to see it. But not having people see this budget, even if it's very slim, is not at all appropriate.
Yeah, Trustee Hall, just Chairman Rutledge just yielded the floor. I appreciate that point. It was my intention to have this published. It was not. Let me just share, just so we're being really transparent. Here's my real concern. My concern is that we're going to tap the previous proposed budget, completely tapped out all of our contingency fund. And that is a very, very dangerous thing to do, given the condition that our district is in financially. That means that we won't have money to replace the boiler if that breaks. That means we won't have money to pay for co-curricular activities if we want to go that direction. That is my biggest concern, is that we leave ourselves in a position, and I'm also concerned that we, by extending a budget that has a salary number in it, that we may have unintentionally extended a property right to our staff that the negotiations team has yet to agree to. That is my biggest concern. And so I don't want to put this board in a position where it can't make a decision later, because legally it's bound by the decision it made previously. And that is my biggest concern. I appreciate the point about being transparent on the budget. That was my direction to staff, was to get this published and to make it public so everyone could see it. To the extent that didn't happen, there was a lot of communication that was happening today. I'll own that for not having that got done. But my primary concern is that we have a budget that is actually able to be manageable for us going forward, and also gives the negotiation team the room to be able to negotiate in good faith with our association, because we need to do that. Because I completely agree, we need to retain as many staff as we can, and I understand that the compensation package is a big part of that. So.
And again, I mean, unfortunately, this is a big deal, and this is the piece that everyone wants transparency on. I would say that we hold negotiations tomorrow afternoon and see if we can get through and come up with an answer, and then we figure out a budget. But this budget has to be, available to the public before we vote on it, bottom line. I mean, it was not seen, it was not noticed. People could not comment on it during the public discussion. If we need to step up the negotiations, I should bring a sleeping bag. If we need to, I know we have a meeting tomorrow at 6. If we need to try to have something earlier, I think it was proposed after Chair Rutledge left, to see if we could meet. We were going to meet Monday, but if given the expeditious need to pay the bills, if we need to try to hammer something out, maybe we meet Friday afternoon or whatever. But I would say let's get this hammered out in good faith. Let's get this hammered out with the negotiations committee, because I can't vote on something that the public hasn't seen in front of them in terms of being transparent on this. You know, if we're doing, you know, if we're not even being transparent, if Vice Chair Brown is saying that we're not being transparent and she can't understand, you know, she wants to dig or dive into the numbers, not even posting this so people can see it is a concern.
So, so are you suggesting that we table this until you can get,
The motion's still on the table, and it's been seconded, so
The
I
motion-
think we just, the motion has been to accept the budget as is, per temporary, as a temporary budget, so we can pay our bills.
And then negotiations, if we have to, we meet, well, I wasn't happy about Friday, but we meet Friday or tomorrow before this other meeting, because part of the next meeting, the work session tomorrow, which is on budget gaps and solutions, is also dependent on getting us through this situation. So I would say the sooner the negotiations meet, we can meet in the terms of negotiations, come up with some final numbers, and then move forward, move forward with actual salary and benefit numbers, and then we will know what our contingency or unappropriated monies will be, would be my, but that either we go ahead with the budget we've published and people have seen it, or we table it, I rescind my motion, and we table it, and we get the negotiations done as quickly as possible. But I know that that then ties Superintendent Durst's hands, because he, we need to pay bills, and that's the other side of the equation.
so are you okay if we table it? Okay, so I move that we table it, and you guys
I'll
come
s-
back with negotiations.
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor of tabling the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Motion's tabled. Okay. Next is item D, open meeting law violation and self-pursuit to section 74-208, subsection 7, Idaho Code separation agreement.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to bring this to the table, the open meeting law violation self-cure.
Okay, I have a motion to bring this to the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, trustee Barton seconds. Debate?
I realize there's some issue of whether this is an open meeting law violation or not, but it was a messy motion that was made. And also, I realized when I went back to look at the information, we gave, back in March, we gave Chair Rutledge approval to go negotiate the separation and the settlement agreement, the separation agreement with former Superintendent Branham. When we came out on the other last week, which I think was June, in June, that it was a messy motion that was made. We didn't include the number because we didn't have it handy. So I'd like to make a motion. The first motion would be to move that we, to the extent the actions of the members of the Board of Trustees inadvertently violated open meeting law by not disclosing the amount of settlement between the district and former employee may constitute a violation of Idaho Open Meeting Laws Act. The Board of Trustees of West Bonner County School District hereby moves that the board self-recognize such a violation as the Open Meeting Acts and self-cure situation pursuant to Section 74-2087 Idaho Code. And that would be my, I further move that the actions of the Board of Trustees in relation to such violations be declared null and void and no force and effect. And so I would like to put that on the table, and then I would like to make a motion to clean it up.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion on the table. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there's a first and a second. All those in favor, or debate first? There's no debate. All those in favor of vacating, is that what we call it, or
It's like nullification.
rescinding the current motion, or the previous motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, okay. And your second motion?
My second motion is I move that the board approves the final separation agreement with former Superintendent Branham and final settlement amount, and I was told that you have that final settlement amount.
That was the, yes, please, Debbie. Okay, the final amount was $8,871.06.
Okay. 800 and...
$8,871.06.
6 cents. Okay. And that would be the final settlement that was paid, and the first part was the buyout of her contract, the remainder of her contract, and I think that was, is that part of it?
That's the final.
That was the final, that's the final settlement amount. Minus tax. Okay. So that would be my motion on the table,
Okay.
is to put that out.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to approve the separation agreement with Jacqueline Branham for the final settlement of $8,871.06 minus taxes. Vice Chair Brown seconds. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, done. Next, I need a motion to go into executive session as provided for by Idaho Code 74-206, 1 subsection A and subsection B, personal matters.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to go into executive session as provided for by Idaho Code 74-206, items A and B, personnel matters.
Personnel.
Sorry.
Okay. Roll call?
Do we have a second? I guess
Yeah. Second by Troy.
Here. Trustee Hall here.
Vice Chair Brown here.
Chairman Rutledge here.
Trustee Reinbold here.
Okay, we're in executive session.
Are we going to the library?
Yeah, we're going to the library.